This video aims to show that through the use of an effective 6-week program, a novice participant is able to develop the skills and techniques to successfully perform the activity of a tennis serve.
The one-dimensional classification of a skill must be understood as a continuum rather than a categorical analysis. When defining a tennis serve by this principle, we can describe it as more of a gross motor skill when compared to a fine motor skill, as it requires the use of large muscle groups to produce the action. It is referred to as a discrete skill compared to a continuous skill, as it has one distinct movement having an identifiable beginning and ending point. Finally, the tennis serve is a closed skill rather than an open skill due to the player initiating the action and the environmental context is stable.
When looking at the tennis serve as part of Gentile's taxonomy of motor skill, we can class a serve as 1B, as it involves object manipulation whilst having stationary regulatory conditions and no intertrial variability.
The 6-week program consists of 3 sessions a week for a duration of 30 minutes each. This was chosen as we didn't want to make the practice sessions too long for a novice participant. The type of training undertaken utilised both fractionalisation and segmental approaches. A fractionalisation approach was shown through the different drills where the participant practiced each arm separately before performing them together. An example of this is the training of the ball toss and the racket swing separately in the beginning of the training program.
A segmentation approach of progressive part practice was also used, where different components of the skill were learned and combined sequentially. As the participant became more capable, the practice type progressed to whole practice, where the complete skill of a tennis serve was undertaken. The program begins with block practice, when learning the fundamentals of the serve. Though as the learner becomes more advanced, the program advances to random practice in order to improve retention. Random practice such as match scenarios require the participant to become more actively engaged in the learning process by preventing simple repetition of actions.
The program also took into account fostering positive transfer, as it is a key component when teaching a novice a skill such as a tennis serve. The idea of fostering positive transfer is taking into account the different experiences that the participant has previously had and making the skill relatable to the experience. Feedback is used throughout the program, beginning with feedback being presented more frequently at the start of the program and gradually reducing. This enhancing retention and making sure that the participant does not become dependent on feedback. The feedback given was terminal, meaning that feedback would be given after the participant would undertake part or whole practice of the skill. The type of feedback given was the knowledge of performance. This provides information about the actual movement patterns and the characteristics that lead to the overall outcome. This differs from that of the knowledge of results, where only the actual outcome is discussed.
The program was based and formed around FIT's 3 stages of learning. The first stage of the program consists of the cognitive stage, where the participant begins to understand the nature of a particular motor skill and performs the skill and the different drills with many errors. The program then progresses to the associative stage. In this stage, the learner begins to understand how the various components are interrelated and are able to modify and adapt the motor patterns. Finally, the program ends with the participant in the autonomous stage, meaning that the skill has now become automatic. This results in fewer errors during performance, and the participant is now able to determine performance errors without the need of feedback.
In order to measure the performance of a tennis serve, both qualitative and quantitative methods were used. This is important as it takes into account the movement and performance of the skill as well as the overall outcome. The quantitative method used for measuring the tennis serve was the testing of 20 serves, 10 from each side of the court. The qualitative method consists of scoring the different key aspects of the serve out of 5.
A pre-test is undertaken before the 6-week program is commenced. At the commencement of the program, an identical post-test will be completed by the participant. A retention test will be completed a week after the post-test, when no practice has been performed. A retention test is used to determine whether the participant has actually learnt the skill or if the performance was only due to temporal effects. If the retention test results is greater than that of the initial pre-test, we are able to establish that learning has occurred. A transfer test will be used after a retention test and will consist of match simulation testing. This is used to assess the participant's ability to adapt the skill they have been practicing to a new situation.
When analysing a tennis serve, we can determine the key phases of the skill. These phases can form the basis for the use of part practice and can help establish the different drills throughout the program. The tennis serve can be broken down into 5 key phases: the preparation phase, the ball toss phase, the backswing and trophy phase, the ball contact phase, and finally the follow-through. Verbal cues provide a short, sharp, concise alternative to the key phrases. They provide augmented feedback to the participant without overloading them with information. They focus on key elements and help paint the picture for a novice participant.
The use of modelling or demonstrations was used throughout the program, although featured more frequently at the beginning. Demonstrations were used before the start of each drill and were given implicitly, meaning that there was no verbal feedback presented when demonstrations occurred. This allows the participant to find a natural flow that would work for them, as the tennis serve can take many different forms. The participant also used mental imagery. This involves the participant imagining a skill or part of a skill. Mental imagery has shown to be an effective aid for learning motor skills when paired with physical practice. Use of performance goals was set by both the coach and participant each week to maintain focus and motivate the participant intrinsically. The use of drills that incorporated scoring was also introduced. If the participant reached the set targets of scoring, a reward would be given as a form of extrinsic motivation. In order to enhance memory and maintain attention, a closed environment with little distractions was used, as this led to a narrow attention focus. As the learner progressed, the use of an open environment was used. This was only introduced once retention of the skill had been shown to occur. The aim of training within a closed environment is to develop long-term memory of the skill. It was also important that during the program, the coach and participant formed a positive relationship. This was formed by the coach providing encouragement to the learner and, as stated previously, stimulating the motivation of the participant. The focus of weeks 1 and 2 is for the participant to become familiar with general movement patterns and the learning of different fundamentals of the tennis serve separately.
The focus of weeks 3 and 4 is combining movement patterns and ball toss to produce a basic serve.
The focus of weeks 5 and 6 is for the participant to become efficient at the serving action, establishing a full serving action and catering for movement after the serve and shot making.